Welcome to another episode of God Yay or Nay. I'm here with Michaël Biker. Michaël, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Noor. Very wonderful. Very wonderful.
I'm really excited to get you on. I've been listening to your YouTube channel and checking out a lot of the stuff you do. You run a program called Yoga Lab and stuff, and honestly, you're pretty much into everything that I'm so interested in about helping people transform, heal, and doing it through a few different modalities. Do you want to kind of maybe give a little understanding to my audience of kind of what you do?
So yeah, some years ago I set up what is called the Life Awareness Project or Yoga Lab, LAP, and it's a project that is very much about spreading different types of techniques to help one to, of course, live more healthy and more happy these things, but also to live more empowered and to awaken basically your human full potential, right? Because we are both physically physical beings, but also, of course, on a more let's say a spiritual level and on a mind and emotional level, we can also start to create a really beautiful life for ourselves and others, of course, if that is all rightly attuned. And we have a beautiful creative force within, the God-given beautiful power to manifest and to create. But many of us have forgotten that power, and it's about regaining that power, connecting with that again, to make this life and this world basically a more beautiful one, right?
And that's actually one thing I like about your story because maybe we can get into that because you've had a big car accident that kind of changed your life, and to kind of come back from that and heal from that, you had to go and find that power, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I had a big car accident when I was 18 years old, and thank God I was already very familiar with different mind training practices and yoga, these kind of things. But yeah, I had some injuries from which doctors said you probably won't heal. My right arm was paralyzed, my spine was broken on two spots, and I had several other things. But yeah, like I mentioned, thank God I was really able with the power also of gratitude, basically, that I felt like, okay, good, this is something that is happening for me as a life experience now for my soul, for my spirit. I'm experiencing this, and it can nurture me to become a more let's say empowered, more wise being. Every experience in life we can transform in something good by doing that, right? And I yeah, through doing different techniques of course, QiGong and yoga and breathwork, but also very much mentally, this state of gratitude, this state of like towards life, feeling like, thank you, God, that I'm experiencing this. May it transform me in something more beautiful, more good. And may I, of course, get healing also, and already feeling gratefulness for the healing. And then stuff started to happen, and thank God now everything is good, full power, and living to tell another story and then share experience with other human beings as well, to sometimes get out of their suffering if they are in there.
And I find that very mature that at 18 you can have that perspective to be like, hey, this is something that's happening to me and I should use this as a situation to transform or change or
Mhm.
whatever you did. And to have that kind of perspective and then search for some sort of gratefulness in that situation is extremely tough. And I just like that's really impressive to have that at 18, that kind of wisdom or insight. So when people are going through these situations, when it's a tough situation, how do you tell them to find gratefulness or find that different perspective in such a rough time, you know?
Yeah, well, it it is important, and this is something that I also very much experienced during that car accident. Um, Even though my body was completely broken, so to say, I was mentally and spiritually, I still felt so connected already. I felt so much inner peace. I felt gratitude towards life, like, wonderful, thank you. for this, that I can still be alive, that I can still breathe, even if there is pain or malfunction. I'm still happy with however it came to me, however it is. And it's really hard for somebody maybe that has not have already cultivated that, let's say, in their lives, to then all of a sudden practice that. Like that you say, oh, just be grateful, and they're like, grateful, whatever, man. I'm incredibly, they even get more angry probably with you and with the situation, right? So it is very much about, of course, already preparing yourself for if things start will happen in your life like that, that you are mentally already feeling connected and prepared to deal with those situations. But if somebody is in that situation, then what really helps, of course, is, for instance, through breath work or through meditation or through guided relaxation sessions, that people start to step out a little bit of their body, of their mind, and to be able to observe their mind and body, like, okay, I'm having this experience now, but there is something, let's say, deeper or something higher with which I am experiencing my body, with which I'm experiencing my emotions, my sadness, so that people feel like, my situation of life is now like this, and I am experiencing that now. So this is, of course, something really hard to do, but this is basically what meditation in a lot of ways also is. It's the ability to identify not so much anymore just with the physical body that you have, but you not completely are, not just identifying with your mind and emotions and that are saying it's nice or it's not nice, but to be able to identify with the observer within, with this consciousness within, basically. And this consciousness is always already in peace. There is always love, acceptance. That's the quality of consciousness, right? And that is inherent in all of us. But so it is the trick to learn to connect with that, let's say, that deeper consciousness that we all have within, that higher consciousness, being able to just observe, like, it's life experience happening now. It's okay. It will always change. It's always different. So that you stop comparing very much with, the situation should not be like this, it should be like this, and I should be healthy, and why am I like this? And this comparing mind, which brings really duality in your life experience, learning to step out of the mind, to transcend the mind, basically, through practices like meditation.
And it's such a powerful practice. And I like that when you separate yourself, when you like actually like kind of connect with that observing self, the consciousness, like you were saying, when you do that, you can kind of see how your mind, or like, for myself, I had a shoulder issue in this last year that caused me like a tremendous amount of pain. And during some of those days, I was like, unfortunately, I just kind of surrendered to the pain, or just kind of went with the pain, and it controlled my life a little bit. But it was something like that. I had to kind of step back and like even have a little bit of separation from my pain and from my mind too. And I started noticing that my mind was generating a lot of that pain too, just from just like it was like almost a memory of the pain, where my mind will be like, oh, the pain's coming, and like it'll amplify the pain even more. So I love that whole idea of like you have to kind of step back, right?
That's a very powerful experience that you had, Noor, and also this is something that it can be applied with the big things like a car accident or a shoulder injury, but also with the smaller things, right? As soon as we feel we have a little bit of a tension about something, or an irritation, or a little pain or a frustration, that we are able to apply this knowledge, this wisdom also in those situations, right? So that we stop living in a state of let's say, duality. And like you mentioned, your mind can create also so much pain by resisting the moment, but that you start to bring unity into your life and feel like, I'm feeling now a bit of frustration, or I'm a human being, I feel pain or sadness. And then you become okay with the sadness, you become okay with the pain, you become okay with the sometimes mental disturbances. And this opens you up to a whole new way of life, experiencing life.
And it really comes down to an acceptance of like the moment, or an acceptance of what's happening, which I think like I've been meditating for like a long time too. So it took me probably 5 to maybe even 7, 8 years before even that idea like was able to infiltrate myself, where I'm just like, hey, when something's going wrong, it's, you need to just accept it and not resist it, because you learn that your mind like almost automatically wants to resist anything that it perceives as negative, right?
Exactly, and that keeps you in a struggle with life, whereas life should be a dance, right? It's something. So much of the pain comes from the mind, comes from resisting what is life is offering you, basically, and so much of the pain comes from then also creating the story around the pain, why it's not fair, or what you cannot do anymore, or how it should be, or this or that, and it creates so much of the pain. So this whole idea of being able to eliminate suffering comes when we open up to the suffering a little bit, right? And then we understand that so much of the suffering comes from the resisting of the suffering. And then we can also deal with the suffering that life has to offer, because part of life is suffering also. There is pain, there is death, there is disease, and all these things. But as soon as we open up to all that life experience, it's not really suffering anymore. It's nurturing almost your soul with life experience, if you know what I mean.
And I like how you said that it's to accept that life has suffering in it. This is just a reality, because I think that kind of goes against almost our culture, like our consumerist, materialistic culture, which kind of, that culture kind of tells you like, hey, we got a solution for everything. Any kind of ailment you have or anything, we'll make sure you're comfortable all the time. And like, so, we kind of grow up like that. And a lot of us kind of think like, hey, I can be comfortable all the time. And a lot of our mindsets are like, oh, I'm going to work until I have so much money and I'm going to be comfortable all the time. And it's just like, that is just a reality that's not true. Like it's not true. Like suffering, pain, sadness, all these emotions are part of the human experience, and they happen to us all the time, and it comes and goes. So it's more of an acceptance that this is what life is, and to gain a more of a resilience to be able to handle these things as they come to you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it would be really wonderful to basically teach people the art of suffering from a young age already, right?
Yeah. I don't know if that's a class I would want to take, but
yeah, that's not a class many would like to take, but otherwise life is gonna give you the classes anyway. And then you find out when you're 60 or something. But yeah, that's the thing, right? We teach in so many ways to try to avoid the suffering and the pain. And like you mentioned, sometimes we evolve our whole life and we build our whole life around avoiding any discomfort or any insecurity or any pain, basically. But it keeps sipping in somewhere through the back door. It is suffering, and we still don't know how to deal with this. So learning or teaching also from a young age already to suffer in a way, like if there is pain, if there is mental or physical pain, how can you deal with it? How can you open yourself up to this? So then we will also change our whole way of life. We will change very much how we where we put our life energy in so much, because so many people put their life energy so much into finding that security, everything that you mentioned before, and then they are maybe 50, 60, a midlife crisis maybe somewhere, and then they think like, hey, what have I been spending all my time and all my life energy on, and feeling that emptiness. Or sometimes people at their deathbed, you know, they be like, oh shit, I should have lived my life in such different ways. I missed out on the moment because I was trying to avoid so much suffering and trying to find satisfaction with things outside of myself, to not feel an emptiness, which is actually space.
An emptiness, which is actually space. I really like that. And this is kind of part of your teaching, just like going through your YouTube channel. I noticed like you kind of tell people when you come back and connect to this like inner self a little bit more, into the consciousness, it gives you a new direction in life a lot of time, right? And it like how would you explain it? Sometimes you would say like maybe you'll find more authenticity, maybe you'll find something more that you enjoy and you want to spend your life doing this, and you might actually even start going after stuff that scares you or going after stuff that makes you insecure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Every human being has also some kind of deeper desire in their life, a way that they would live if they would not be so much driven by their fears or their ideas of how life should be, or what other people told them how they should live. If they would live completely free, they would live maybe a whole different life. And everybody has on a deeper level really a heart's desire, a heart's path of ways of living. And this is very much also about all these wonderful techniques that I can share, these courses, is how do you connect back again and peel off those layers of maybe fear that you have about life, or stuck emotions that really determine what you choose and how you live your life, or maybe ideas that you have of how you should live, how life should be. How do you empty yourself from that and go back to almost that pure source of desiring to live and to create and to do something in this life?
That's beautiful. Can you maybe give my audience, because I know like this is more of something you work with over time, but can you give my audience a little idea of like how you'll help people kind of gain what their real desires are, or understand what their real desires are, understand like, you know, because those are pieces of wisdom that are just like really, really nice to have for a person, and it can change the whole course of your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've seen that happen so much with people doing these courses. They change the whole way they live and their habitual patterns in the direction of life. So I have like different courses, right? Some are much about really about breath work, and there's a big power in breath work to be able to clear out stuck emotions, clear out any let's say ideas that really block you from thinking freely and creating freely, and to get back to this source. One, for example, is called the Breath is Life course. I would highly recommend people doing that. Another course is also a 7 days training program in which you create new habitual patterns. And a lot of people are stuck in habitual patterns of living, of course, eating maybe not so the good foods, maybe having wrong, let's say, habits that are not good for mind and body, but how to create good habitual patterns, and also in the way that you feel, in the way that you think, to the whole day through, remind yourself like, okay, connect back to that center, to that base. Do you feel very stressed out at the moment? Okay, how does that actually feel? Do you feel that maybe tension in the shoulders? Do you feel tension in the face? Do you feel blockage in the head? How does that feel? Can you, with just 5 calm breaths, relax that maybe a bit more? And if you keep doing that for 7 days long, the whole day through, you change the whole way your whole brain is wired. Your neural connections are made. Your nervous system is wired with the respiratory system, with the heart, etc. So you start to rewire your whole being. And once you start to do that and you feel you have more energy, more focus, that's already such a great step to get again to that, let's say, that source, that pure truth basically within you, and start to live from there. Because like I mentioned, so many people, they just live life on an automatic pilot, and they do a certain job because they are afraid to do something else, or they do it just to get recognition from people, or they do it just because they have been doing it for so many years. But they feel in the background something is not right. I want to live my life in a different way. And it's about really starting to dare to listen to that voice within, start to take all the other noise out that is in your life, and dare to listen to the voice that can guide you in such a beautiful life.
And I love that, especially I noticed how you were saying, like, and a lot of your work, you talk about paying attention to the tensions or feelings in your body, because this is such an important thing. And it took me doing breath work to like actually become a lot more aware of it. Like, I've been meditating for probably 15 years now, and I was never that aware of the tensions or my body as much as until I started doing breath work, where I started becoming very aware, like, oh, like I got tension here when I'm this kind of stressed, or oh, I get these like feelings in my stomach, or whatever it is. But yeah, that is a really good thing to really see, because you start noticing how your body and mind and emotions are all pretty much like connected. And like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's, and that's the wonderful thing, as you have experienced yourself as well. They are all so connected, and then learning to use the breath, because it's all connected, to use the breath to influence all these other layers of your being, with the breath influencing your state of mind and balancing out your state of mind, or with the breath starting to unblock if the heart, if the emotions are stuck, if you carry tension in you. And the breath is like a tool you can apply in so many ways to heal, to energize, to harmonize all these different systems that we have in our body, in our being.
So when you say a blockage, so when you're like in that like breath work or meditative state and you feel something, so like, would you call like some sort of tension? Like, would you be like, okay, this seems like some sort of block and we're gonna try to breathe through it? Is that how you would look at it?
Yeah, basically. So what can happen, as you have experienced maybe yourself as well, when you're doing breath work or meditation, that you find all of the sudden you feel a strong resistance, for instance. And instead of feeling the resistance and think, oh, it's not working, I'm going to get up, I'm going to stop breathing and do something else and eat a bar of chocolate, whatever it is that you normally do, you break that pattern and you step into a different mode. You go into an observer mode, and you think, like, there is tension now. I feel a strong tension maybe here, or feel a tension here, or whatever, wherever it is on the body. And you start to observe it without judging it, without putting any stories about what happened 5 years ago when you had a snowboarding accident, whatever it is, but you just observe however it comes up. And what starts to happen then is, you notice there is an emotion behind it, a mental tension behind it, and you start to become aware of it. And sometimes it becomes a bit stronger. Sometimes you get a strong emotion that comes up or out, and you get a release of this tension. So it's like you gave the opportunity to bring light on an area of your being, to bring awareness on an area of your body, of your emotional system, and you were able to bring it up to the surface and to just feel it, just experience it without any judgment, just feeling it, like, there is a bit of pain here or there, I just feel it. And by doing so, you start to almost like melting something that is frozen with the light of your awareness. You start to melt it out of your system, and one will feel really this relief, a bit more freedom after, like, there was some tension, and then you can just live free from the relationship that you had with the tension of always wanting to resist it or change it or not feel it, if you know what I mean. So it's about freeing yourself, basically.
And freeing is a good word, because when you do these practices and you actually release tension, you will feel a lot lighter, you'll feel a lot more open, and those are states of mind or states of being that are a lot more accepting for opportunities or just insights into just who you are and what you want, kind of thing.
Absolutely. And the thing is also, maybe there was a blocked emotion of just a sense of fear of being alone, whatever. Hey, anyone can fill in the blanks. There's many different emotions and feelings that can be stuck. But for a moment, just feeling the fear and becoming aware, like, it's okay to feel the fear. And it's like that it starts to melt, because in normal life, maybe that fear is always a bit there, but in the background. And people feel that fear, but as soon as they feel it, they feel like, oh, I don't want to feel it, I have to do something. And maybe it turns into a certain addiction towards overeating, or towards pornography, or towards whatever it is. And being able to break free from that habitual pattern of feeling a certain discomfort, doing something to distract yourself, and then feeling an emptiness, and then you repeat that process again and again. So by being able to feel it, you become master instead of a slave, basically.
I really like that. And you're right, like we run away from that feeling a lot of times. And when you start noticing these feelings, so like how you were saying, it might be a fear, and a lot of times you'll notice that, like, let's say a fear of being lonely, like you just said, a lot of times it's like something that it's almost irrational, and sometimes you just have to kind of give yourself a little self-love and just be like, hey, it's okay to be, sometimes I'm alone and I'm fine being alone. I love it. And I'll eventually find people to be with as well. And because sometimes it's just like you need to just give your mind or your subconscious like a little bit of self-love. And like if you have those kind of fears, like whatever it is, you need to kind of maybe give it like a little bit of the opposite, right?
Absolutely. And like I mentioned before, the quality that is inherent in everyone of consciousness is, and I don't want to start sounding a bit too much spiritual, but it's that sense of space, the quality of real acceptance, of real love, of real peace that is inherent in all of us, because that's the quality of consciousness. So as soon as you give that fear, or that sense of loneliness, or that sense of really sadness because you were hurt some years ago, whatever it is, as soon as you start to give that the space, you are able to identify not so much with the emotion that you normally would think, oh, I'm getting really sad, or I'm getting really anxious now, I have to change. But you become aware more of the consciousness, the space that you give it, like, there is fear now in my life experience in this moment. That's all right. But you become kind, open, friendly towards the life experience. And this is such a healing process.
That is, yeah. And yeah. So you become that kind, that friendly. I like that, like your experience. It is like a very light way to live. I love, and it is like you want to kind of like develop a little bit of just like a kind of happiness of like what life is. And yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. And one more thing about this, sorry, Noor, but in meditation, it is also so important to do, because sometimes people can practice meditation and they think, okay, I should pay attention to my breath, or I should relax, or I should
really
do
serious.
this, should do that. Very serious. And I had a wonderful teacher, wonderful guru. He always said seriousness is a disease. Because then you just bring more tension. The ability to really that quality of that consciousness within, the quality of friendliness, just a friendly breath, not trying to control so much your emotion, but just that friendliness, like it's okay, it's life happening. And the more you practice that, the more you become that kindness, that acceptance, that friendliness, and it goes into your whole being, basically.
Yeah, and like that's such a perfect point, because that goes against all of what meditation is. If you're just going to be sitting there like, oh, I'm not meditating good enough, or it's just like that it just completely defeats the purpose. And that in itself is like just a mental resistance, because it's your mind kind of going like, I need to be great and I need to be this, and why aren't I like that? And you're comparing. That's like what the mind does. It always compares itself to something that that it's just not realistic, or it's just not real at the moment, and it's against the whole process of what meditation is. And you want to, yeah, I like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's I want to talk a little bit about breath work. It is something that's so life changing, and on this podcast I try to get my audience, I really try to influence them to try different types of it. I want to know how many types of or like not how many, but like do you do different types of breath work? And just for people to know, like, what different types of breath work, how do they influence your body? I really love the whole idea that your breath can do so much to influence your body.
Yeah, so I teach mainly the pranayama yogic breathwork techniques, and there's many types of breathwork nowadays, also with very strong hyperventilation methods, holotropic breathing and all these things, which are also very powerful, very wonderful. But I believe very much it has to go both. You have to do strong breathing techniques first to unblock, to open up the physical system, but then very important also to do the slower breathing techniques. And I'll explain a bit why. So like I mentioned before, with the different types of breathing, you can influence your state of body, your nervous system in different ways. If you do really strong, deep breathing, Wim Hof breathing, holotropic breathing, however one wants to call this, it is very much activating your sympathetic nervous system, this fight or flight mode, this activating mode of the body, the types of hormones that are being secreted, like adrenaline, those kind of things. It really activates everything. It raises the heart rate, blood pressure goes up. Whereas the slower breathing techniques, the very calm, which is called hypoventilation, the slower breathing techniques, they calm everything down. They activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which is about rest and digest, basically, right? So the stronger breathing techniques make you go really into your, let's say, your physical body. You start to feel strong sensations, maybe tingling if you do it for a very long time. You start to really unblock emotions. Maybe you start to feel certain strong emotions like laughing or crying or things like this. And like I mentioned before, if it activates everything. So if one has their eyes closed when doing it, you'll notice, and this is good if you're already very advanced in these types of practices, become really aware of what is happening within you. So that you start to feel like, okay, what is happening in my energetic system, so to say. So you close your eyes and you see maybe, I notice I see a lot of colors. Or maybe you notice like, I have a lot of thoughts happening now. It's like a river that is really strongly flowing, like a waterfall that is really strongly flowing, right? So therefore, it's really important to also calm everything down. And that's done with the slow breathing techniques. And whether that is alternate nostril breathing, or whether that is very gentle, slow ujjayi breathing, or slowing down the breath that you just breathe once a minute.
Once a minute, wow.
Yeah, it's a wonderful technique that you have the different ratios, which is called Friti Pranayama. the ratio of, for instance, 6 seconds in, hold for 2 seconds, 4 seconds out. But then you extend the ratio so much that you breathe in for 20 seconds, you hold for 10 seconds, and you breathe out for 30 seconds. And you need to practice this a lot, because if it's really done with tension, it's no good. You should be doing it in the next way. But this really smooths out, it really balances the mind. And then all of a sudden, you go on a much more subtle level of your being, not so much the gross body, but you become really into a deep meditative state. The mind becomes very calm. There's no more turbulence in the mind. And then you go into a deep meditative state. So like I mentioned before, if for those of you who are already practicing a lot of breath work, just see what happens if you do a round of really strong breathing and you close your eyes and you bring your attention inward. Is there a lot of movement in the eyes, a lot of mind stuff happening, maybe even seeing some colors or visualizations, a lot of tingling sensations? And what happens if you do very slow, calm breathing techniques as well? What happens then within? And this is called in yoga pratyahara, the ability to bring the awareness inward and to feel like, what is happening now within my let's say inner being, your energetic being within. Because every firing of the neuron, every sensation, every feeling is a flow of energy, right? It's electric energy, of course, in the neurons, in the nervous system, but also on a subtle level, it's prana, it's life energy, and learning to work with that.
That's beautiful. I really like that. And it's kind of funny how you were saying that. With breath work for myself, I'm mostly just into a lot of the stronger breath works. So like I've been doing that for a few years now, and it's really good. And like just in the last few weeks is when I started, and I don't know, it almost just came naturally to me, where I just started doing the really slow breath work, and I started doing kind of like a box breathing, and which is like you were saying, like 6 seconds, 2 seconds. The one I was just doing was 4, 4, 4, 4, and like the slowing down was I started noticing how it like really just calms the mind so much. And I started actually doing that before. I'm a comedian, so before I go up on stage, I would started doing the box breathing, and it just like really just calmed me down and put me in the moment. And it really, it really allowed me just to like just to perform from just my presence, like just be there and perform from there, because I have a tendency to sometimes go in my head, and I'm sometimes thinking of the next joke I'm going to say while I'm performing a joke, and it then the joke doesn't hit as hard, because it's just like you don't have that connection of just being present.
Yeah. And how did it influence your meditations?
Like I really think it just it calms the mind, like you were saying. Like a slow breath really calms the mind, and it just puts you into that meditative state and that calm state so much quicker. And like honestly, I just it's a very pleasant state to just like kind of sit in. And the one thing I've also noticed how you were talking about is like have that friendly attitude towards yourself. When I did slow down my breathing a lot more, it's a lot easier to cultivate that attitude, to just be like, because when you're in that calm mind state, it's a lot easier to just be like, like I love my life, I'm grateful, and I'm happy, and like it's just nice to be in this state. And it made it a lot easier to do that.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, there is a great power, like I mentioned, in the strong breath work. However, it can almost turn one into a sensation junkie, that you want that strong sensations. If you do really strong breath work, you feel like the tingling, the out of body experience, the strong the endorphins that are being released, that strong kind of high, a natural high. And it can make one a bit less sensitive for the the stillness, because as soon as there are no strong sensations and no strong, maybe like I said, the visualizations or feeling a bit out, spaced out, then you feel like, nothing is happening. This is boring. It's over. Whereas as you have been meditating for a long time, in that stillness is actually where the true meditation is found. Not in the busyness of sensations and feeling all sorts of sensations and spacing out a bit, but in that real stillness, as soon as everything becomes still. And it feels for some like first like boring because they need stimulants, they need sensations. But if you get more trained in this, you feel like, in that stillness is the peace. That's where the awareness can go really like deep within. You follow a bit what I'm trying to
100%.
say here?
Yeah. And
Wonderful.
no, man, and thanks for explaining that. And just for my interest in breath work, I really appreciated how you explained that, because you did it very well. Also, so QiGong, I don't know much about this, and I'm not sure how much of my audience does. So can you give us a little intro into that, just because it is something that sounds very interesting?
Yeah, so QiGong is a wonderful practice of breath work, movement, mostly movement also, and meditation. It's a bit like yoga, but then originated in China. And it is very much about slow and gentle movements, but slow, gentle movements with just a light bit of opening up, and slow movements. And because you move so slow and with full awareness and with very calm breathing, it becomes like a meditation in itself, a meditative movement. And Qi is what is referred to, for instance, in yoga as prana, or the life force, the Qi, the life energy. It's learning to work with this life energy, so to say. So by doing certain movements, you start to open up all these energy channels in the body, and of course also a bit the nervous system and the blood flow, everything that flows, you start to open up. And then it's also about, after that you go into like breathing practices in which you can feel like you bring life energy, prana, Qi, into the body. You breathe it and you expand it out into every cell. You expand it out, and like that. And I've done this wonderful practice for years and years. And even if it's very subtle, very slow, you get really energized from it. You get really strong from it. Physically, you get super healthy from it. So for a lot of people who see it or just started, they think like, it's too slow, or you don't feel it burning your muscles or a stretch or this or that. But if you do it a couple of times, people will know that, wow, there is a great power in the subtleness of this practice.
And I always notice when people do QiGong, like I sometimes see them in the parks and stuff, it's always in the morning. Is there a reason for that?
Well, it's, of course, a great way to start the day, that's first of all. But as in yoga practice as well, it's also recommended to, if you can, to do it mostly in the morning. It's in the morning, there is this fresh, new energy in your body. It's also the moment when the mind, it has been really resting for hours in a row, so it's easy to focus. It's easy to go into a more meditative state. You have not done any work yet, any other things that you can be distracted from. So that's when you can do it with full focus. And it's of course a wonderful way to open up the body, to prepare the body to, and the mind for that matter, to work and to do your day, to go through the rest of your day. So it is said that in the morning there is the air is filled with more energy, with more Qi, with more prana for that matter. It releases more prana in the body. This is something, maybe it's a theory, maybe not. I don't know. But I do notice if you practice these things before you do all the other things in your life, you can do it with a lot more focus, a lot more attention, and it does really do something more with you.
Do you have a consistent morning routine?
I do have a morning routine which is usually now, because I have two wonderful younger children, and they need a lot of attention in the morning as well. But before they wake up, I just do a bit of what's called a little 5 or 10 minute opening up, little warm up. And if I have more time, I do some yoga or QiGong as well. And then I do some breath work, but very short amounts of strong breathing and longer amounts of slow breathing. So just like 2 rounds of 9 breaths of doing like this, breathing, what's called spinal breathing. It's in my courses as well. And then I take a moment to breathe very slowly. And then I just sit and meditate. And in that meditation, it's like you're creating a kind of you know, these oxygen chambers in which they say if you go in there, you really heal. And it's almost like you do that in those meditative states, that you just sit for a moment in a space, in a presence of life, of consciousness of God, and you just sit there and you feel like you're feeling healing happening, you're feeling energization happening, balancing happening, everything wonderful is happening.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. All right, Michaël, this was amazing. Thank you so much. I got one more question. It's the name of the podcast, so I'll ask you that. So, Michaël, God, yay or nay?
Yay. But it's of course a very difficult question, because then people will say, no, it's Allah, or no, it's another name for God, or it's this or it's that. But I very much believe in the source of life, of creation, of everything, and that we live in this intelligence. There's an intelligence in so many things around us, and there's this living intelligence what we are part of, and which is part of us. Like we are cells in a big body, and we can make connection with that intelligence and start flowing with that in creation. And so God, yay. But if somebody wants to go God a different name or a different, also fine. I would agree with that as well.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Michaël. This was such a wonderful conversation. I really learned a lot, and I'm sure my audience did as well. Where can they get a hold of you? Anything you want to just kind of promote or let them know about, please let them know now.
Wonderful. Yes. So I would highly recommend doing one of my courses, especially to start off with, is the 7 days essentials course, in which you learn stuff about meditating and creating a good daily routine for yourself, about breath work. And you find it on Yoga Lab with a P, yogalab.com. And it's called the Essentials course. And if you want to learn deeper about the breathing practices that I talked about, and learning both the strong and the subtle breathing techniques and how they work, it's the Breath is Life course. You can find it all on that website. And on Instagram, Michaël Bijker, you can also find some stuff sometimes that my wonderful assistant puts a lot of things on there as well. So that's very wonderful.
That's amazing. All right, man. I'll put that in the description of the podcast so people can check it out easily. And honestly, Michaël, this was amazing. So thank you for everything you do. And hopefully we could do this again in the future.
Wonderful, Noor. Absolutely. Thanks a lot for having me. Good vibes, peace and love. And I hope you live a beautiful life and inspire many more people.